In this part of the tutorial, we're going to introduce character arrays in Android. So we're going to do that again by declaring and initializing a character array, and we're going to have it contain the word mammoth, but separated into several different characters. So again, we'll create that array. It will contain the word mammoth if we were to print it out. So it's basically going to be an array that starts with the character M, the second element's a character A, so on until the last element, which will be a character H. And I'm also going to explain how it's different from a string. By now we've looked at arrays of booleans, integers, floats, and doubles. Now we're going to look at arrays of characters. Now, when I talked about characters in our variable tutorial, I talked about them as being particularly useful for representing arrays of characters where we need to pick and choose certain parts of that array. So, for example, let's say we have a character, let's call it character A, and it has the value of this letter A. Could also be a number, could also be a symbol. So this is just one character. Now, if we have an array of characters, this can be very useful for representing a variety of things. So let's call this character array, we'll call it mammoth, and can you guess what this is going to contain? I'm sure you can. We'll call it new array of characters, give it a length 7, and we're going to populate it. So we're going to say the first character is an M, second character is an A, third character is also an M, and so on and so forth. So there's O, there's T, and there's H. Okay, so we now have our array, 7 elements long, and it basically contains the word mammoth. If we were to print out every element in the character array side by side, we would get the word mammoth being printed out. But as it stands right now, this is basically I'm just going to write this in the comment for you to see. It's basically an array of characters of length 7. Now this is different from a string, and I'm glad I can finally demonstrate to you exactly what I'm talking about. If we had the string mammoth here, again I'm just going to comment it out, then this is treated as one unit. So this entire string of 7 characters long, this is treated as one unit. It's not an array, it's just a single variable of type string. Now that's good, as I mentioned in our string variable tutorial. It's good for representing messages and text, but if we want to call an individual member, then it would still be a string. For example, if we called the substring function on one of these, on the very first character in the string, then yes, we would only get a string of length 1, but it's still a string, and there are certain functions and operations we can't perform on those. Whereas if we have the character array mammoth, then this is 7 units long rather than the 1 unit that's represented by the string. 7 individual units represented by a character array of length 7. And this is especially useful when you're parsing information online or from other files, such as parsing a long list of binary that you need to interpret, which for now is beyond the scope, but if you take ComSci courses, you might have to do just that. So this is where character arrays are very useful. Again, we could include this or exclude it. It's totally up to you. I'd like to include it just for the convenience sake and just while we're still learning exactly what they are, because this way you know exactly, okay, it's an array of characters, it's length 7, we know it's an object, which is why we call the new, and these are the values it takes on. Right, so that's pretty much it for character arrays. Again, they're very useful for passing information from files. So there's lots of times where we'll take a long list of numbers or letters or symbols and we'll store them into character arrays. But we'll get more into that later. In this part of our tutorial, we introduced to you character arrays in Android. So we did that by creating an array containing the word mammoth, but we separated this into a 7 character array. So again, the first character was an M, second was an A, and so on up until the seventh character, which was an H. And I also explained how strings are different from character arrays. So remember, a character array is an object of however many character variables, whereas a string is just one variable. So that's one variable of length, however long the string is, versus a character array, which is an object with many variables in it. So by now, you should be able to create an array of characters and explain when character arrays are useful and when we would use a character array versus just a string to contain a message or basically just a list of characters.